Chapter 13 of The Big Time by Fritz Leiber. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Karen Savage. Chapter 13. But whence he was, or of what womb he bore, of beasts or of the earth, I have not read. But certes was with milk of wolves and tigers fed. Spencer. The tiger is loose. I guess when they really push the button, or throw the switch, or spring the trap, or focus the beam, or what have you, you don't faint or go crazy or anything else convenient. I didn't. Everything, everybody, every move that was made, every word that was spoken, was painfully real to me, like a hand twisting and squeezing things deep inside me, and I saw every least detail spotlighted and magnified like I had the 7 skulls. Eric was standing beyond the bomb chest. Little smiles were ruffling his lips. I'd never seen him look so sharp. Illy was beside him, but not on his side, you understand. Mark, Sevensee, and Beau were around the chest to the nearer side. Beau had dropped to a knee and was scanning the chest minutely, terror under control making him bend his head a little closer than he needed to for clear vision, but with his hands locked together behind his back, I guess to restrain the impulse to push any and everything that looked like a disarming button. Doc was sprawled face down on the nearest couch, out like a light, I supposed. Us 4 girls were still by the control divan. With Cabby, that surprised me, because she didn't look scared or frozen, but almost as intensely alive as Eric. Sid had turned back, as I'd said, and had one hand stretched out toward but not touching the minor maintainer, and a look on his beardy face as if he were calling down death and destruction on every boozy rogue who had ever gone up from King's Lynn to Cambridge and London, and I realized why. If he'd thought of the minor maintainer a second sooner, he could have pinned Eric down with heavy gravity before he could touch the buttons. Bruce was resting one hand on the head of the control divan and was looking toward the group around the chest, toward Eric, I think, as if Eric had done something rather wonderful for him, though I can't imagine myself being tickled at being included in anybody's suicide surprise party. Bruce looked altogether too dreamy, Brahma blast him, for someone who must have the same steel-spiked thought in his head that I know darn well the rest of us had, that in 29 minutes or so the place would be a sun in a bag. Eric was the first to get down to business, as I'd have laid any odds he would be. He had the jump on us and he wasn't going to lose it. Well, when are you going to start getting Lily to tell us where she hid the maintainer? It has to be her. She was too certain it was gone forever when she talked. And Bruce must have seen from the bar who took the maintainer, and who would he cover up for but his girl? There he was, plagiarizing my ideas, but I guess I was willing to sign them over to him in full if he got us the right pail of water for that time bomb. He glanced at his wrist. According to my caller, you have 29.5 minutes, including the time it will take to get a door or contact headquarters. When are you going to get busy on the girl? Bruce laughed a little, deprecatingly so help me, and started toward him. Look here, old man, he said. There's no need to trouble Lily or to fuss with headquarters even if you could. Really, not at all. Not to mention that your surmises are quite unfounded, old chap, and I'm a bit surprised at your advancing them. But that's quite all right, because as it happens, I'm an atomics technician, and I even worked on that very bomb. To disarm it, you just have to fiddle a bit with some of the ankhs, those hoopy little crosses. Here, let me. Allah, but it must have struck everybody as it did me as being just too incredible an assertion, too bloody British a barefaced bluff, for Eric didn't have to say a word. Mark and Sevensee grabbed Bruce by the arms, one on each side, as he stooped toward the bronze chest, and they weren't gentle about it. Then Eric spoke. Oh, no, Bruce. Very sporting of you to try to cover up for your girlfriend. But we aren't going to let ourselves be blown to stripped atoms 28 minutes too soon while you monkey around with the buttons, the very thing Benson Carter warned against, and pray for a guesswork miracle. It's too thin, Bruce, when you come from 1917 and haven't been on the big time for 100 sleeps and were calling for an A-Tech yourself a few hours ago. Much too thin. Bruce, something is going to happen that I'm afraid you won't like, but you're going to have to put up with it. That is, unless Miss Foster decides to be cooperative. I say, you fellows, let me go, Bruce demanded, struggling experimentally. I know it's a bit thick to swallow, and I did give you the wrong impression calling for an A-Tech, but I just wanted to capture your attention then.
I didn't want to have to work on the bomb. Really, Eric, would they have ordered Benson Carter to pick us up unless one of us were an A-Tech? They'd be sure to include one in the bally operation." "Then they're using patchwork tactics," Eric grinningly quoted back at him. Cabby spoke up beside me and said, "Benson Carter was a magician of matter, and he was going on the operation disguised as an old woman. We have the cloak and hood with the other garments." And I wondered how this cold fish of a she-officer could be the same girl who was giving Mark slurpy looks not 10 minutes ago. "Well?" Eric asked, glancing at his collar and then swinging his eyes around at us as if there must be some of the old Wehrmacht iron somewhere. We all found ourselves looking at Lili, and she was looking so sharp herself, so ready to jump and so at bay, that it was all I needed, at any rate, to make Eric's theory about the Maintainer a rock-bottom certainty. Bruce must have realized the way our minds were working, for he started to struggle in earnest and at the same time called, "For God's sake, don't do anything to Lili. Let me loose, you idiots. Everything's true I told you. I can save you from that bomb. Sevensee, you took my side against the Spiders. You've nothing to lose. Sid, you're an Englishman. Beau, you're a gentleman and you love her too. For God's sake, stop them." Beau glanced up over his shoulder at Bruce and the others surging around close to his ankles, and he had on his poker face. Sid, I could tell, was once more going through the purgatory of decision. Beau reached his own decision first, and I'll say it for him that he acted on it fast and intelligently. Right from his kneeling position, and before he'd even turned his head quite back, he jumped Eric. But other things in this cosmos besides man can pick sides and act fast. Illy landed on Beau midway and whipped his tentacles around him tight, and they went wobbling around like a drunken white and silver barber pole. Beau got his hands each around a tentacle, and at the same time his face began to get purple, and I winced at what they were both going through. Maybe Sevensee had a hoof in Sid's purgatory, because Bruce shook loose from the satyr and tried to knock out Mark, but the Roman twisted his arm and kept him from getting in a good punch. Eric didn't make a move to mix into either fight, which is my little commandant all over. Using his fists on anybody but me is beneath him. Then Sid made his choice, but there was no way for me to tell what it was, for as he reached for the Minor Maintainer, Cabby contemptuously snatched it away from his hands and gave him a knee in the belly that doubled me up in sympathy and sent him sprawling on his knees toward the fighters. On the return, Cabby gave Lili, who'd started to grab too, an effortless backhand smash that set her down on the divan. Eric's face lit up like an electric sign, and he kept his eyes fixed on Cabby. She crouched a little, carrying her weight on the balls of her feet and firmly cradling the Minor Maintainer in her left arm, like a basketball captain planning an offensive. Then she waved her free hand decisively to the right. I didn't get it, but Eric did, and Mark too, for Eric jumped for the refresher sector, and Mark let go of Bruce and followed him, ducking around Sevensee's arms, who was coming back into the fight, on which side I don't know. Illy unwhipped from Beau and copied Eric and Mark with one big spring. Then Cabby twisted a dial as far as it would go, and Bruce, Beau, Sevensee, and poor Siddy were slammed down and pinned to the floor by about 8 gravities. It should have been lighter near us, I hoped it was, but you couldn't tell from watching Siddy. He went flat on his face, spread-eagled, one hand stretched toward me so close I could have touched it but not let go, and his mouth was open against the floor, and he was gasping through a corner of it, and I could see his spine trying to sink through his belly. Bruce just managed to get his head and shoulder up a bit, and they all made me think of a door illustration of the Inferno, where the cream of the damned are frozen up to their necks in ice in the innermost circle of hell. The gravity didn't catch me, although I could feel it in my left arm. I was mostly in the refresher sector, but I dropped down flat too, partly out of a crazy compassion I have, but mostly because I didn't want to take a chance of having Cabby knock me down. Eric, Mark, and Illy had got clear, and they headed toward us. Maud picked the moment to make her play. She hadn't much choice of times if she wanted to make one. The old girl was looking it for once, but I guess the thought of her miracle must have survived alongside the fear of sacked sun and must have meant a lot to her, for she launched out fast, all set to straight-arm Cabby into the heavy gravity and grab the Minor Maintainer with the other hand. End of chapter 13.